So a couple of weeks ago, you may have noticed a video on my channel where I made a very grand announcement that I am going back to the tech industry. And it's been 3 months, I think, since I started this whole process, so I thought I'd update you on what I've been up to these past few weeks. And really, it's just been a crap ton of interview prep, like 200 hours of it. I've had many quarter-life crises, spent more time on Zoom than the last 2 years combined, and failed more mocks than I can even remember. But first, let me introduce myself and talk more about why I'm tryharding so much in the first place. And then, if you're not familiar with it, I'll share what the PM interview process is like and 4 key steps that I'm following to prepare for them. And this video is sponsored by DataCamp, and we'll get back to them in a little bit, but yeah, let's get on with the video. Now, you may know me as a YouTuber, but in a past life, I was a software engineer. I interned at a FAANG company and then moved to San Francisco to work at a biotech startup funded by Google and Andreessen Horowitz. But I left all the free food and the scenic views to work for myself and launched this very YouTube channel. And I talked a lot about why I made this decision in a previous video, but yeah, TLDR, I worked in tech as an engineer, then I left that to become a creator, and now I'm going back to tech, but hopefully as a product manager or PM. Looking back at these past 2 months, I've spent my evenings, my early mornings, and my weekends just prepping for interviews. And you might be wondering, of all the things you could be doing in your life, why are you spending this much time tryharding just for an interview? First, I just want to make the most of the time that I have, because I remember in college when I was applying for internships and even for full-time jobs, I never really took the process that seriously. I'd cram leak code the night before an interview, and if I was really on top of my game, maybe the weekend before. Of course, that never worked, and as a result, I missed out on so many different opportunities. But now I have the luxury of time since I'm in no rush to find a job right away. And since there is also a lot to learn and I really want to find a job that I'll love, I'd rather put in the time now instead of having any regrets later on. Second, I want to maximize the number of offers I can get. Because again, in college, both times I was applying for jobs, I basically just took the first offer that I got. And then, after receiving the offer, I bombed the rest of my interviews because I told myself, I already have a job. Why does it matter now how will I do in this interview? What I failed to realize is that by actually accumulating more job offers, I could use those as leverage in negotiation. So even if I was going to accept that first job offer anyways, I could still negotiate for a higher salary. Anyways, having learned from that mistake, I hope this time that I can line up a couple of job offers so I can have options to pick from and to negotiate with. So yeah, that's why I'm acting like a crazy lady doing all of this interview prep. Now, some people might consider PMs to be like the CEO of their products, which of course was very appealing to me. But basically, they're like the idea machines. They help come up with what teams should build and help them get it done. And the PM interview process reflects that, which, as I realized, is very different from lead code. So first, there are product design questions. To me, these are the most fun, but also the most challenging. They ask things like, design a phone for kids, or how would you improve Instagram stories? Then there are strategy/execution questions, which are a bit more businessy, like how would you measure the success of Airbnb? Or should Lyft enter the food delivery business? There's also estimation questions, which sound really ridiculous, like how many slices of pizza are sold in New York? And then of course, there are more familiar questions to me, like technical ones and a lot of behavioral ones as well. So yeah, this process is completely different from what I was used to, and I had to do a lot of practice to start thinking about these questions, not as an engineer, but rather as a PM. And since I do need to brush up on my technical skills by quite a bit, I'm using DataCamp, which happens to be the lovely sponsor of today's video. DataCamp is an online learning community that offers a combination of interactive video classes, practice exercises, and even project guides in Python, SQL, R, and so many more. Their bite-sized lessons allow you to learn in a way that fits your schedule. And with more than 350 hands-on courses, from Intro to Python to financial modeling, DataCamp really has it all. And you can get unlimited access to all of their courses, including specialized career tracks starting at only $25 a month. So be sure to use the link in my description and check out the first chapter of any DataCamp course for free. And thank you again, DataCamp, for supporting my channel. Now back to the video. Now, I should preface this by saying that I haven't gotten a PM job yet, but I am pretty confident in my interview prep strategy, which includes 4 key steps. Master the fundamentals, self-study, do a lot of mocks, and finally apply for jobs. First, the fundamentals. Now, the first few weeks of my prep, I turned into a sponge and tried to learn as much as possible about the world of PM. I started by reading all of the classic PM interview books, like Cracking the PM Interview, Decode and Conquer, and Swipe to Unlock. And I didn't expect this, but there were so many different acronyms and so much business lingo that I had to learn. But throughout the process, I dutifully took notes on Notability and on Rome. And actually, this was pretty fun. It felt like it was the start of a new semester and I was back in school, and there was so much ahead of me. And as I was reading these chapters and encountered practice problems, I would stop and do a mock interview with myself. I've always been a massive proponent of self-mock interviews, not just for PM, but even for engineering interviews. And yes, it always feels a little bit silly sitting in your room talking to yourself. And to take it one step further, I also recorded myself on my iPad doing these mocks, which luckily I destroyed most evidence of. But still, this process helped get rid of some of those nerves of answering these kind of abstract questions on the spot and helped me get the confidence to schedule my first real mock interview. Now, unlike with engineering interviews, for PM, you can't just self-study, and that's where mock interviews come in. These are 1-hour video calls where you and a partner ask each other interview questions and give each other feedback. And luckily, there are some great PM Slack groups, which I'll link down below, where you can find people to do these mock interviews with. Now, despite all of my self-practice, my first mock was a massive fail. I don't think what I was saying even made sense in an interview, which of course my partner roasted me on, but I got through it, and now that it's been 30 or 40 mocks later, I would say there are 3 key things that I've learned through this process. First, document your process. Usually with my mock interviews, I take notes on these little notepads with feedback that I receive and things I saw others doing and wanted to try out for myself. And then maybe that weekend, I'll always transfer my handwritten notes online to either Rome or Bear. First, I think it'll be nice to collect all these little notepads to reminisce on maybe a year or 10 years later. But besides that, for this process, I think it's really helpful to look back at that feedback a couple of days later and actually reflect on how you want to apply it. Second, create your own framework. Now, one thing I learned about the PM interview process is that there are a ton of different frameworks that everyone seems to use. But what I've learned from Slack groups is that for those who really succeeded in this process, after a lot of practice, they actually develop their own frameworks that are unique. So after my first maybe 15 mocks, I took the basics that I'd learned and added my own little spin. But yeah, I'd recommend that you try to find your own style and kind of test it out and iterate on it during the mocks. And lastly, quality beats quantity. I fell into this trap myself where I would book entire Fridays with back-to-back mocks from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. just to maximize my practice as much as possible. But TBH, it really doesn't help. In fact, I would say it was a disservice to all of my hours of practice because I would never really put in my all into those mocks, and I would just want to get through them as quickly as possible. But yeah, after all of these weeks, I'm finally starting to slow down a bit on my mock interviews and actually take some breaks, which is much needed. But yeah, now I'm feeling a lot more confident about the whole interview process, and that whole foreignness of product management has kind of faded away. And this brings me to today. I'm actively applying for jobs and starting to interview at a couple of startups. I don't have much more to say on this part, but I will update you when I am farther along. Now, the only thing that I would do differently if I were to go back in time and start this whole process all over again is that I'd actually start applying for jobs a lot sooner. Because even after doing 20 mock interviews, I kept telling myself that I wasn't ready to apply. Because what if I get a Google interview and I'm not 100% ready? But TBH, it usually takes several weeks from when you first apply for that job to when you have that product interview. So yeah, I definitely wish I had started applying weeks earlier. But overall, I'm really happy that I took all of this time to prepare, not just to learn more about PM interviews, but also to reflect more on whether product management is for me. And besides that, I've also made a lot of really nice internet friends through these mock interviews, and I've become a lot less awkward on Zoom calls, which is a plus. And more broadly, I think I've learned a lot about what it means to build a really great product, which, if not for my tech job, will also be really useful for this YouTube channel. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But anyways, that's it for today's video. Hope you liked it, and I hope that you're enjoying following me along on this job hunt expedition. Definitely let me know if there are any other videos you want me to make about tech or CS or the tech industry in the comments down below. But otherwise, if you like this video, please give it a big like and subscribe. Follow me on social media if you want to. Thank you again, DataCamp, for sponsoring this video, and I'll see ya in the next one. We will see how it goes.